Hello and welcome to the Clout and Blue podcast. It's been a week since Aston Villa last played a football match, but we absolutely don't want to be talking about that. But we've all probably got a little bit of withdrawal symptoms, so that's why we're here with a fresh episode. I'm your host, Dan Rolinson, and this podcast is sponsored by both NordVPN and Sailey, two sponsors now, so there's all the information you need in the link down below. I'm looking at a camera. John Townley's there on my monitor, and this feels weird. John, how are you, mate?
I'm well, thanks, Dan. Yeah. I'm going on holiday tomorrow for a week. So
Nice.
that's my mood. I'm looking forward to that. If anyone else is going on holiday, hope you have a good time. I will be having a good time. It's been a pretty long season, although it's gone quickly. I feel like a lot happened last season. It felt like definitely 2 seasons in one, maybe even 3, depending on how you want to kind of look at it. But yeah, I'm kind of over really last weekend. Not over it by any stretch of the imagination in terms of like, doesn't matter. Not at all. That's going to matter for the rest of time for me in terms of Man United and Aston Villa. It's there, but I've moved on in terms of I'm not thinking about it much anymore. I'm now thinking forward. I'm thinking to the transfer window, the chaos that could be happening in the next few weeks, and obviously looking forward to the start of the season as well, Europa League, etc. So yeah, I'm in a much more positive place with Villa right now.
Yeah, okay. We'll get some comments in a second. Obviously, like we said, it's the first weekend without football. What have you been up to, John?
Great question, Dan. I've been working, but it's been really quiet in terms of transfers and whatnot. Last season, I actually went away the week after the season ended, so I don't remember what happened, if anything. I wasn't there. I'm expecting maybe, a bit more busy when I'm away. So I'm going to have to keep my phone on and probably do little bits and bobs here and there. But I want to know as well what's happening. So I'm happy to be doing work and finding things out, shall I say, when I'm on my sun lounger. So yeah, looking forward to that, really. It's going to be interesting to see where Villa go from here. Obviously, they don't have Champions League money next season. So they are going to have to factor that into their thinking. Don't have to do it this summer in terms of the money and the revenues, but then they will have to have an eye on next summer as well, because they don't want to just have a kind of quote unquote fire sale next summer and leave this summer as, make a little bit of money. I think they're still going to have to generate funds, and as I said previously in the live show as well, they've got no problems doing that, Villa, in terms of they have assets. I think they can replace players that they sell as well, certainly a few of them. So yeah, interesting to see where Villa go from here, and business will start to ramp up now that the summer window is officially open. Villa, their transfer officials, Emery, they'll be sitting around the table now and finalising. I say finalising plans. Even they don't know what's going to be happening in the next few days, because you don't know what offers are going to land on the table for different players. Last summer, it was a situation where everyone knew who was in sticky situations, like Villa, Newcastle, Forest, Chelsea were helping out, shall I say, Everton too. So yeah, how that plays out will be interesting and pretty fascinating. I'm hoping that Villa will be able to kind of stand the ground in negotiations with whatever happens in the next few days. There's already some stuff coming out about interest in certain players. I can tell you for a fact that pretty much all of the Villa squad has interest from different clubs, but obviously particularly from Saudi Arabia. It came out last night that it was Amadou Onana that's of interest to them. We obviously knew that Tielemans was of interest previously before that. So yeah, again, there's ways that Villa can make money if they want to and need to. So for that reason, I'm not stressed about the summer window, really.
Yeah, we're going to discuss some of that throughout this evening's episode. Quite quick shout out, sorry, to obviously Stato, evening lads, Johnny Lou, good evening lads, and Rich 1874, sup villains. Fair enough. This episode, for those that are catching up with it, is being broadcast live on YouTube on Sunday, the 1st of June at 7:20. So everything that we say is relevant now. Might even be relevant in the morning. These things do change that quickly. I'm going to flash up a little box in the corner, which is just a great. Oh, there we go. From Rich. It says John's with a H, which is funny. So your comments will appear on screen. So keep it clean, nothing rude, anything like that, because I will just get rid of it. But there's your opportunity to have your little space in the corner to get involved as well.
Space in the corner.
Yeah. Leave the comments in the corner. Forget about that. Today's episode is titled The Missing Puzzle Pieces of Aston Villa's 2025-2026 team. Now, we're going to kind of talk about qualities and profiles of players rather than specific individuals. So I don't want to be saying that, oh, we're talking about Eza, for example. So that means that we want him. Well, I do, but we think Villa will sign them or there's interest. It's nothing like that. It's just that we think that kind of player. So maybe we might mention it. We're not talking about those players specifically joining Villa this window, but that kind of profile or quality is something we're after, like leadership or pace and those kind of things. We're kind of going to look through the squad that we've got. And I know we did this in the office at the start of the week with the top-down angle of the little pieces of paper and saying who we want to keep and who we want to sell. So we're not going to do it to that extent, but we're going to look at almost each department, if you like, keepers, defenders, midfielders and forwards, and look at what we've got and maybe what is missing for us to be better again next season, which is obviously always the aim. Before we get into that, very quickly for a bit of a plug, so a few people saying great live show on the other day. Apologies about the audio for everyone who listened online. We had a technical problem at the venue. We think we know what caused it and it shouldn't happen again, but that was a real kick in the gonads the next day to go through the footage and realise it was basically not very good. So yeah, big apologies for that. And also a quick plug, very quickly, John, we'll get on with this in a second, for the Making of Morgan Rogers piece that we posted on Saturday, sorry. I had a great tweet saying, "Oh, that's a really good piece. Like that must have taken ages." And I replied, like, not in a smug way, but like that edit didn't even exist on Thursday morning. Like it's been a quick turnaround because of, transfer window now. Things can change very quickly, like we've said, and that's not us suggesting that Rogers is leaving, by the way. But if a bid comes in, for example, it's like, oh, we've got this big piece, waiting in the wings to come out, and that would be weird to post it if somebody bids for him. So we filmed it in bits and pieces throughout the season. I think the first bit, the Middlesbrough journalist, was done in like September. And then you were the last one to be filmed a few weeks ago. And we were trying to work out when to put this piece together and post it. And I kept prolonging it throughout the season, thinking, well, if Rodgers is involved in a big moment, we're going to want to talk about that. For example, winning the FA Cup. It'd be weird to post this big feature and not talk about something like that. And it could have, and almost probably should have, the fairy tale ending. He would have scored the goal to get us into the Champions League, and that would have been the ending. And it didn't happen. So I put the piece together over about 24 hours, a little bit over that, and got it out there. I've had great feedback for those that have watched it, but if you haven't yet, please do go back and have a look. Right, on with today's episode. That's all the plugs out of the way. We'll start with goalkeeper then, John. We know what we have at the moment in Martinez. When we did our piece of keep, sell or loan, we put Martinez in sell because that's what we think would happen. When we recorded it, again, things can change. If Villa get an offer for somebody else, maybe that means Martinez can stay. We're not going to get into the nuts and bolts of that now. But what we need in that department for next year is, if Martinez stays, a competent backup of decent enough quality that is better than Robin Olsen was. And if Martinez does go, what qualities do we then need in the team? Because we've lost Martinez. How do you assess that position? Difficult.
Trouble is how I would assess it. I think it's a big job to replace Olsen, which sounds mad, but the backup to Martinez we know is so important because, to be fair, I think Olsen has actually made had a few good performances. Brentford, Brighton the season before. Did you still call last season this? How are we working out? I'm just going to call it this season still because we're still in that realm. Okay. That's all right. So last season at Brighton, away, I think we lost late, and then Brentford obviously kept a clean sheet. Actually played very well. So I think it's more so we know how important it can be because of his poorer performances. So it's really important that we get a competent backup. But then if you're losing Martinez, one of the better goalkeepers in the world, then it's a huge job. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one because obviously for a goalkeeper to leave a club, firstly, you need obviously a buyer, not just a buyer, for example, I don't know, Wolfsburg. This is Emi Martinez, if he's going to leave Villa to another top club. I don't know, an Atletico Madrid, not Barcelona. It doesn't appear because they're going for Garcia, a player who was obviously on our radar. So that's one off ours, and Barcelona kind of blocking one maybe pathway for Martinez. So yeah, again, I'm going to say this a lot, but quite fascinating in terms of where that ends up. In terms of options for Villa, I mean, you've obviously got the Lille goalkeeper. There'll be others as well, but nothing jumps out on the page to me. I don't know about you. Obviously, Kelleher's gone to Brentford for about 18 million. That feels like a relatively similar deal to what we struck with Arsenal for Martinez. Different in terms of playing time and experience, and the fact that Martinez had won a trophy, for Arsenal at that time and really held his own and had gone on lots of low moves before. Kelleher's different, so I'm not really too fussed about that. I don't feel like we've missed out necessarily. Obviously, if Kelleher has a great season for Brentford, then hindsight's a beautiful thing. But sitting here right now, that doesn't feel like something that is all of a sudden going to click into gear, tomorrow morning, shall I say. It feels like that could be potentially a slow burner, the Martinez one. Unless, of course, Atletico find a buyer for Oblak, or they're happy to bring Martinez in and Oblak just has to rot on the bench. But I don't think that'll be happening because that's just a massive waste of an asset who you're paying good money to. So it's a difficult one because Martinez, when he started crying at Villa Park, I think everyone assumed that, he'll be off kind of at the nearest opportunity. And maybe that still happens before June 30. But it just feels like there are a few things. Well, it doesn't feel like there is a few things that have to happen before that. Villa also need to find that goalkeeper that they want. I know some reports come out in, I think it was France, the Villa had essentially opened talks with Lille for Chavelier. I haven't had that backed up myself. I'm not too sure if that is the situation. I've no doubt he's a target for Villa. But in terms of opening talks with any goalkeepers, it's not something I'm aware of as of right now. So, yeah, I'm sure Villa have done a lot of groundwork, though, because this Martinez situation, it wouldn't have surprised Monchi that Martinez was emotional after the Tottenham match. It wouldn't have been a surprise to anyone. So, yeah, there's certainly something happening there. But how fast it does happen and will it happen, two completely different things. And I go back to do Villa have to sell Martinez? No, if they sell other players, which sounds very, obviously, mate. But it's true. And is that a player that you have to sell this summer when others can go? I don't know. Again, I think if a move suits Martinez and he's happy to go and says, I want that move to Atletico, and they sell Oblak, I'm sure something will come to fruition there. But the Saudi move, don't think that would be appealing to Martinez anyway, even before.
Might be a bit like the Duran January move that they didn't really expect that to happen at the time, and they're not at the moment the succession planning, or we're aware of that this could happen at some stage. Maybe they thought for the last few months that Martinez is the easy one to move on for whatever reason. But if somebody like Saudi come in for Onana, which would not be the plan to sell, and if that kind of secures Villa's PSR problems for this year, then they can have a stronger grip on Martinez and not have to sell him because they weren't expecting that to happen. It's a really interesting point from Adam, just to end on goalkeepers, because we've got a lot to get through. If Martinez goes and Olsen already gone, do we get two potential starting keepers and have them battered it out for the number one spot, similar to what Arsenal did?
No,
that's a big red flag to me.
No, definitely not. No, you sign
too difficult position for that, isn't it? We saw the problems at Arsenal specifically, that it just doesn't work.
Oh, if we go into the season not knowing who our number one is, I'd rather not sign one of them, which sounds mental. You've
got two really good keepers, but you're not sure who the number one is. I'd rather just have the one good goalkeeper, know he's the guy we're sticking with, and have a lesser second choice, because you're always going to have a lesser second choice by default, that they're second choice. And when they're behind someone like Martinez, they know they're never playing or very rarely playing. And that is a strange situation to be in, but goalkeeper is a strange position in that sense. So I think you've got to go out and get as close to a top number one as you can, put all your eggs in that one basket at least for a couple of seasons and see where it goes. But it is a risky position to change.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why I say the Martinez situation. I think everything needs to line up perfectly for this to happen.
Yeah.
You're not going to find Martinez going somewhere that he isn't 100% sure on. He'd just stay at Villa. So, yeah, we'll see where this goes in the next few days.
Okay. All right. Let's move into the defenders then. There's a few tweaks here, and I've said a few times now on the podcast that I'm not concerned about PSR and how much we need to make up by the deadline and all these kind of things. Firstly, because that will be in hand by Villa. If they need to make 20 million or 50 million, they'll do it, and that'll be that. I've seen a lot of people talking again about, why don't we just stick the rules to the Premier League and take the points deduction, when it was frustrating enough to miss out on the top five in the way we did. But So we're 6 points worse off, sorry, because we had a points deduction, or we're near it anyway. So that's never going to be a thing. Villa will never take a points deduction by choice, and no club will, I don't think. What was I going to say? Yeah, so I trust Villa to deal with it and fix whatever they need to. But I also think that we change it anyway, because we need to make finance wiggle room to enhance the squad. Like, for example, Matty Cash might not be someone that we're like, that's a priority. We have to fix that for whatever reason, but it maybe should be. So if we want to do all these things, Villa are going to have to wiggle things around and make money and trade players for the purpose of improving the squad. So I think there's a spot at right back that I do think it is a priority. I think there's probably something at centre back and at left back as well if Luca Dean goes. So again, you're potentially changing your goalkeeper, 2 of them. You might be doing a different right back. You back up left back, back up 3rd or 4th choice centre back that can build to become the first choice to overtake Ezri Konsa, let's say, in 2 or 3 seasons. And already that's a lot of work to be done before you even get into the middle of the pitch and beyond. So my message to fans would be, if anyone cares what I think, is don't worry too much about what the PSR figure is and what the deadline is, because Villa will just deal with it. And there's going to be a lot, like Damien said in the end of season awards, like it's going to be a difficult summer. Like there'll be things happening. Players will go, players will come. Villa will make money. They'll spend money. Like this will probably be one of our busiest windows, I think.
Yeah, possibly. And it's just that going through the defence there, you're probably going to add at least 2 players to that. Yeah. Unless there's any unexpected sales. I don't think there will be. I say unexpected sales as in Torres or Mings or Maatsen. I don't think they'll be going anywhere. Konsa either, because then you'd be doing surgery. So yeah, Dean, you'd expect to leave. High earner, final year of his deal, so really the last chance to get any sort of fee for him, really. So a new left back needs to be coming in. They've always been linked to, is it Truffert? Oh, God, I'm terrible at pronouncing names, particularly French names. I think he plays for Stade Rennes. And I think he captained them, actually, in the second half of the season. They didn't have a great season, Stade Rennes, but they've got a good reputation for developing players, and he's still got a decent age. So, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if that happened. Literally replacing Dean for a younger profile of player, not someone who I've watched too much of, but if that was to happen for a decent fee, okay. In terms of the centre back, the right-sided centre back, obviously the Sassy is going back to Chelsea. Will Villa look to make that permanent? I think you can probably find better, younger, and cheaper. You could probably tick all 3 boxes there. I know that Christian Mascara, the Valencia defender, was on a relatively long list of right centre backs, the right side of defenders that Villa have. Whether that's been whittled down even further now, and he might even have to be taken off it because I think he's going to Leipzig. Leipzig seem to be taking all of our right-sided defenders, or at least our targets anyway, Geertruida and obviously Nedeljkovic too. So, yeah, you'd like to think that they activate that. I think it's about 10 to 12 million pounds for Nedeljkovic. That would be a nice little boost for us, really. And then at right back, you're looking at Matty Cash and Garcia. Obviously, Garcia is going nowhere permanently, whether he goes out on loan or not. I'd be surprised if he went out on loan myself, because he still played in some important games last season. Nottingham Forest, for example, he started in. And apart from that back pass against Liverpool, hasn't really put much of a foot wrong.
I like it. I think there's a player in Garcia.
Definitely steady enough to at least be a backup. In terms of Cash, though, is Cash going to be getting a new contract? I highly doubt it. And he has 2 years left. So
I think following the blueprint that we've seen from Villa before is that means that Matty Cash would likely leave this window if we can find a buyer that matches the valuation that we deem acceptable. He's entering that stage of his contract. He wouldn't be offered new terms, and he can definitely be improved upon. It's how you work it, isn't it? You either commit to a Garcia loan because Emery doesn't think he's good enough for whatever reason, or thinks that maybe not good enough, but that he needs game time elsewhere consistently, so that Cash stays, but you still sign somebody else, and that player competes with Cash to start, and Cash becomes your understudy, but that becomes a very expensive understudy. That's not really what Villa have done.
Yeah, and this isn't me forcing Cash out. I'd be happy for Cash to be an understudy at Villa, or at least competing for minutes, shall I say, because that's what you want. You don't want anyone to really be an understudy, do you? Although that's the way that we just say it. You want everyone to be, they can play every game, or that one plays every game.
Dean and Maatsen on the other side is almost the perfect example, isn't it? Like Dean or Maatsen are the understudy, but they're both very capable.
Sorry, Mings, Torres, Kamara, Onana, Barkley too. I mean, that's a bit, yeah. But you get my point. It's throughout the team, you want it to be literally level pegging, and it to fit certain games. So yeah, but in terms of cash, it wouldn't make sense though for Villa to just keep him for another year and let his value go down. There was obviously strong interest from AC Milan last summer, and they chose Emerson Royale over him.
I forgot about that.
Baffling stuff that. And the price that Villa, I can't remember the top of my head now. I did get it. I think it was 30 million, I believe, at the time. I'm pretty sure it's 30 million. AC Milan were closer to 20. So his value would have gone down from 30 million because he has 2 years left. But then if he stays one more year, which is okay, but then doesn't get a new deal, well then, his value has gone down. And 2027 contracts, Cash, Tielemans, Kamara, obviously, Kamara especially, offered a contract back in April. And has been in talks. Tielemans, I think they're going to try and open talks over a new deal. McGinn is also 2 years left, and Leon Bailey, we'll get to him shortly. And as well, an interesting one for me anyway, Jacob Ramsey. So Jacob Ramsey, Matty Cash are in the same boat as you've got to make a decision on these guys. Do you just give them a 1 more year extension, which doesn't, for me anyway, like put a whole lot of trust in them moving forward? I think it basically just buys you an extra season to see, do you want to keep them around? I think that's something you'd probably do more so with Ramsey than Cash, because Cash is, how old is Cash now? Let me just quick check that.
30,
Cash age, of course, that wouldn't. I think he's about 28. Yeah. So 27. He's going to turn 28 in August. So again, if you sell him next summer, he'd be closing in on 29 with 1 year left. That's not a good business decision, is it? No. But then equally, it's not a good business decision to sell Cash now and not have the right back ready to bring in. So I look at that and I do think it's don't want to say problem position, but that's an intriguing one that I think a few people might. I mean, to be honest, I think a few people would like to see us add another player there. But when you look at around the squad, you probably leave that one as well. We have 2 players there, so let's look at the elsewhere first. But actually, that's quite an important one, I think.
I definitely think it's an area that we have to sort. I think improving upon Matty Cash is probably something that we should have done definitely last summer, if not even the one before, to be honest.
They tried to sign Geartrider, didn't they, last summer, and didn't have the funds to do it in the end.
So that clearly shows that this is something they want to sort, and Cash hasn't had a good enough season, despite being good. If he's suddenly putting in Trent numbers this year, you go, well, we thought it was a problem last year, but now it isn't. Nothing's changed really to change your decision on whether we need to upgrade him or not. So that needs to happen. John says if we're talking about profiles, we need proper right backs, not a centre half that can play right back. I know we saw that a lot under Emery last year when Conser played there and whatever else. Let's comment very quickly. Kessler Hayden, he'll be sold, I think, for PSR purposes. So I wouldn't include him in the equation. It's Cash, Garcia, somebody else, and then whatever they decide to do. I think Cash would be more likely to leave if we can find a buyer for the right price, rather than you have Cash and somebody else and Garcia goes on loan. That doesn't quite make sense to me. The right back that can play centre back thing or vice versa, if that's how Emery wants to play that position, you kind of have to accept that that's the profile that the club wants to go down. However, I want to see a right back that attacks. I want a right back to go forward. I want a right back to get to the byline and cut back, like we saw Moreno doing on the left side in his first season, getting to the byline, cutting back, getting assists. I want to see somebody with pace, athleticism. Like if I'm looking at building the perfect profile, I'm not suggesting that Cash isn't some of those things, or even Garcia isn't some of those things, but I want a better version of both of them.
So like a Livramento, is that where you're going?
Yeah, that kind of vibe. Yeah, that's a decent shout. And again, like we said at the top, that's not suggesting that we're going to sign Livramento or that's a rumour or anything, but that kind of profile would tick a lot of boxes for me. It is a difficult one though, and I think again something that I'm keen to kind of reiterate that we've definitely said before, but it seems to be forgotten every single year. Let's say Villa signs somebody in a few weeks and it's a striker, let's say, whilst nobody else leaves, we sign a striker first. That isn't that Villa felt that striker was our biggest problem and they wanted to sign that player first, because that's the biggest problem they had to fix. Yeah, football doesn't work like that. Different deals are done. If we don't sign a right back till our final signing of the summer, it doesn't mean that we wanted one, but we've been stuck with this guy that we didn't really want.
Yeah,
things take time, and it definitely isn't signings are ordered in priority. But I know for a fact if we don't sign a right back first, it'll be we need to sort right back. All right, we probably will, just because they're not first doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, well, you saw Villa signed Torres, didn't they, when they had Mings, and then Tielemans when they had Luiz.
Yeah.
It was probably the two positions where you thought, well, we don't need to do that. But
it's just the way the dominoes fall that those deals come first. Yeah. When I mentioned the profile that I want, is that what A, you want, and B, what you think Emery will do?
I'm not too. I understand why you want a right back. You don't want a right-sided defender, if that makes sense.
Well, I want a wing back, really. I'd say that's what
I think we're so committed on that left wing back situation where you have Maatsen playing as a winger, essentially, and then Ramsey would cut inside and play almost like a number 10 in off the left. I like that, but then you obviously need balance on the right, and we'll kind of get to it in a bit. My right winger, I want them hugging the width. Fair. And then to be fair, your right back can underlap, can overlap, can be a threat still going forward, and they absolutely have to be. But equally, I'd want them to be defensively secure first, I think, is where I'm trying to get with that. I don't know whether... How old is this? Let me just quickly say this before I say something stupid. God, I can't type. Okay, a bit too old. I was just going to say Wan-Bissaka. Obviously, that's a player who was on the market. Was it last summer now? West Ham's player of the year. I was just thinking maybe could you just go in there and see what they want from him? But he joined obviously recently. It's worked for West Ham. Has Wan-Bissaka gone there and thought, I thought we would be competing for Europe then? Yeah, but he's 28, I think, later this year. So forget that. But that kind of player, I'm happy for that. Someone who's physically capable to get up and down, but defensively secure. I do think that's really important. We can't forget about how many goals that we conceded. And in an ideal world, they have everything. And that's why I think Liveramento's kind of a good profile of player. He isn't defensively brilliant, but for a right back, he's probably one of the better defenders in the league, really. I've seen a lot of people saying Kyle Walker-Peters, which is fair enough. But is Kyle Walker-Peters going to take you to that next level? For me, no. I think it'd be a good squad player, but I think we now have that in Andres Garcia. I'd rather see Andres Garcia try and push the level of the team rather than Kyle Walker-Peters come in and do that. I think his level is probably lower Premier League or maybe mid-table. I don't know, maybe like a Fulham, which is obviously a good level this season, but we want to be winning the Europa League, competing for the top 5 in the Premier League. I think there's probably a level above that, in my humble opinion, just because we have two players there who were already steady. I think Kyle Walker-Peters would be another pretty steady player. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. We'll come on to the right back again in a sec when we discuss the right side. Left back, I think, yes, you want an understudy to Maatsen. We had a question in the Q&A that we've not even filmed yet, but I've already kind of got it to the running order about it's the first choice now Maatsen's. I think that's pretty inevitable that Maatsen will be first choice next year. Because I think Dean goes for a starting thing, and you won't sign somebody better than Maatsen, having spent 30-odd million on him last year. So he'll be first choice. There'll be somebody else to come in underneath him. Left centre-back, I'm pretty content with Mings and Torres, but I'm not a fan of the constant debate over which one. I think that's a bit of a problem, to be perfectly honest. Right side is going to be Konsa starting, but again, who's behind him at the moment? I mean, when we did our video the other day, we had Bogard there, and he's a midfielder, really.
Bogard's interesting. Bogard's interesting, isn't he? Because he just signed a new contract. Obviously, with the, you're going to play games, else he wouldn't be signing the deal. I don't know. Will he just be given a chance?
I think he'll be around the squad because he can cover multiple positions. But what?
But surely he wants to be playing now.
Yeah, maybe like a short-term European loan, like go and play for Ajax for 6 months or something. Like, that's something just a little bit different, and then come back.
Very, very out there. That is a short-term European loan.
Just for January.
Do you fancy playing for Las Palmas? Lamar. I don't know. I mean, we won't talk much about it here, but yeah, just an interesting one because I feel like that would be a natural shoe-in. But then I know for a fact that Villa are looking at right side of defenders. Again, whether they go for them or not is a different matter. But they've got a list. So, yeah.
Most of the midfield is set. Like, again, if we're picking what do we think is going to happen right this second, we want Kamara to sign an extension. We want Tielemans to stay, and I think he will anyway. I want an Ireland to stay, and I suppose we'll talk about his transfer links as well. Let's do that right side while we're still talking about right back, because I've already discussed the profile I want, but you're spot on. We do that on the left side. Can you do that on? Can you have Maatsen and an attacking right wing back? And what does the right-sided forward in front of them look like? If it's someone like McGinn who's coming into a midfield three, yeah, you need the right back to bomb on going forward. If the right winger is Leon Bailey of 2024, scoring goals and getting assists and playing wide, you don't necessarily need that right-sided right back to be going forward, as you've discussed. So those two positions work in tandem. Whatever Emery wants to do in terms of setup is what the profiles that we go after will be. If we suddenly sign insert name that is known for playing on the right side and touching the hug line, you would expect our right back to be a bit more defensive that we sign, because you can't have both of those players wanting to bomb on and neither of them want to trap back. So that's obviously a recipe for disaster. So what kind of profile do you expect then at right wing?
I just want Leon Bailey back, the old Leon Bailey. Maybe not the old Leon Bailey, just the last season Leon Bailey, the middle Leon Bailey. I know it's hard because he played out his skin, and I expected much better from this season. But it was just the role that he picked up in the team really was perfect. Even when he didn't play very well, it was still fundamental that we had that player that could perform that function in the team. If you look at what Morgan Rogers does now, it really pains me. Not Rogers as a player, of course not. But it just feels like, I want someone to occupy that space, because now he's clogging up that area that Asensio's in, and that means the run that Watkins makes isn't the right one. Like, it all just, and I know, you look at the assist, for example, that Rogers made for Watkins, that one action, and it's a goal, and Watkins breaks the record for Premier League goals in the club's time in the Premier League, etc. But I want Rogers firstly over there on the left or in the middle, and I want a player to create width on that right side. I just think it's so important for this system that we've seen Emery play for most of his time at the club so far, that we have a player that can do that. And unfortunately, I don't have a name right now. I mean, unfortunately, we didn't really plan this particularly well on my part anyway. I've always said that Brian Mbeumo would be that, a player who can come in and attack from the flank. But yeah, without Champions League football, I can't see another club not paying 50 million, 60 million. So I'm at peace with that now. It doesn't have to be Mbeumo anyway. It can be. There's many of the wingers that can do that. I'm just gonna have to have a think about it. I remember watching Bakayoko for PSV a couple of seasons ago, and I thought, yeah, that's exactly what I like from Bailey. This is when Bailey was playing well, and Bakayoko has fallen off a little bit, I think, in the last year. Hasn't quite hit the heights of what he did when he was younger. But that sort of player, that's what I want to see. And obviously pace as well. Pace is really important. And products. Yeah. And again, we're at the level now where we are competing for the Champions League in the Premier League, and we have a lot to offer for any player. So the fact that we're not in the Champions League is, frustrating. But we signed Tielemans, Torres, Diaby, nonetheless. Other players, all without Champions League football, and it was Conference League football at the time. Kamara, when we had Gerrard, and were in pretty much like mid-table obscurity. So we can definitely attract players still. And I did a piece on it basically saying that firstly, selling, it's part of the course. And Villa are still really attractive for any team. Got one of the best managers in world football. Like, it's okay. It's fine. Like, we're going to move on. It's just that little bit harder, a bit more challenging. But yeah, in terms of the profiles of players, for me, right winger has to be someone who can, get chalk on their boots, allow that right back to do an underlap, an overlap, whatever it may be. Create space for others, and I think that's when you'll see the best of teammates as well. Attracting markers and creating opportunities. Not even when he's touching the ball, just creating space is so important. I think for when we attack, especially in transition as well.
I think to add something to the qualities that this kind of mysterious right back needs to have, if it is that forward that's going to stay wide and get to the byline, the right back's not going to get as far forward, generally speaking. So if you can deliver a decent ball from a bit further back, so some of the balls that we've seen Cash put in from not probably just a little bit further back than the edge of the box when he cuts back onto his left foot. If you're kind of getting into those areas or just a bit further back than that, you can kind of deliver that curving ball into that classic corridor of uncertainty. Then that would be a nice attribute to have. On the forward, Kevin says, Marlon, anyone? ? Earlier on, Josh said, I love Marlon, but I hear he's on 140 grand a week. Is that too much to be on the bench? Now, I really like Marlon from everything that I've seen, and I know you're the same. We've spoken about this before. I think we did it at the live event. I think Marlon is a striker under Emery. I think he's a striker option. However, I like the idea of, again, for argument's sake now, Watkins, McGinn or Ramsey on the left, Rodgers in the middle, and Marlon on the right. Like, in my head, that sounds like that would work. Whether it does or not is a different matter. But every time we've seen Marlon pretty much in cameos this season, he's played up front.
Yeah. And I'm okay with that. I just do think at the moment Marlon is quite a he's obviously a very versatile player. But put it this way, I know that I wouldn't be shocked if he starts on the right side for 25 Premier League games next season, because we have still bought the player, and he'll be on a fair whack as well. He left Dortmund to join Villa, team who's almost always pretty much in the Champions League, and was in the final a few months before he left. So he's going to play, but I just haven't seen exactly from what Emery wants where he's going to play. If that makes sense, we can say, play him off the right, because that's where he played, for Dortmund for a bit. Well, that's all well and good, but we're doing a literal podcast based on profiles of players. I don't think we would have done this if Steven Gerrard was still the manager. We just said, "Oh yeah, we need a winger." We don't know what they're going to do though, or how it looks. He always says he knows how it wants to look. And to be fair, he wanted to play with 2 10s. It didn't work at all. But less said about that, the better. But in terms of Marlon, just a player who can come on and make a difference. That's what we've seen him so far. Is there a starting space for him in the team? Yeah, for sure. But where that is, probably would be on the right.
Yeah.
But across the course of the season, you're going to get injuries. Watkins may miss a few games. He would then play up front, I presume. So yeah, it's almost like it's kind of like the handyman in the team, which I'm fine with. Is Marlon fine with it? Don't know. Probably. Not. What do you think?
Maybe happy is not the wrong word, but again, if you're getting a decent wage and you're in the Premier League team for the first time, and
I think if Marlon's if he's scoring goals like he has been, that run that he went on when he scored 3 and 3, he started, I think, that Forest game looked really good. But I don't know. I have my reservations about him as well, playing in away games. I don't think defensively he's quite switched on. But again, that's something that Emery can probably coach into him, at least to a point. Yeah. So, I'm glad we signed Marlon. Very, very useful player in the squad, 100%. But is he going to start as many games as what he would hoped for? I don't think so.
Let's touch on the central midfielders then. Like I said before, we want Kamara to stay. He's been offered a contract. It is what it is. We'll wait and see. Obviously, if he was to leave, we're going to need a replacement. If we don't sell a midfielder, I don't think we need one centrally. Obviously, Barrenechea might come back, and if we do sell one and it's Barkley or McGinn, for argument's sake, which I don't think will happen, Barrenechea is you kind of like, well, we own him anyway, so he comes in and he replaces that hole in the team. But if none of them leave, I don't think we need to change anything. So let's just take as read that Kamara signs his contract and stays. The one that has been in the news, if you like, lately is Onana and Saudi.
What would you do there if a bid of 75 million comes in?
For Onana?
Yeah.
I'd keep him.
For 75?
Yeah. I mean, it's very Diaby, isn't it? Because you're not going to make much money on him anyway, because he only joined in the summer previous for 50.
But the comments that Emery said when Diaby left was quite striking for me. He said something along the lines of, and he's never really said this about any of the players that Villa have signed, probably because they haven't left yet. But he basically said it wasn't quite what we wanted. And put it this way, if Onana was to go, it will be because Villa don't see that. And I'm with you. I'm seeing more signs that he is fitting in.
Yeah.
So for that reason,
almost, if they sign him to be a right-sided forward, and they realise actually he's probably better suited to a striker, but that role doesn't really exist for him. Okay, maybe we'll hold our hands up and change that. But Onana, I think, fits into what we're doing. And like I said, 75 is obviously a good amount of money, but because you only just spent 50 on him, yes, it's profit, but I don't know. Yeah. I think there's a talent in there. He's a great age. He's got a great profile, which is obviously what we're talking about. Very unique in that sense that he offers something different. I think he will only get better. I think his second season next year will be much better than what we've just seen, and he ended it pretty well. So I'd want to keep him. I think if it was more than 75, you'd probably twist my arm. Even if it was literally just 80, I think at that point you probably have to say, yeah, okay then. I don't know. I'd really want to keep him, but again, it's the kind of spinning plates of squad building that if that is the sale that keeps Kamara or keeps Rodgers or whoever, then you probably do take that trade off.
I think 75 million for any player. I say any player, for most players, is a huge amount of money though. So I've plucked 75 million out of nowhere. Say if it was 60, I think that's something the Villa would probably turn down and ask for more. Or maybe just turn it down completely. And we're not selling Onana. But then, as I say, if 70, 75 comes on the table, I don't know. I think that's going to be hard to turn down, even though it's a player who's so unique and is young and has years on his deal and has shown signs that he's going to improve. But I was having this conversation with my dad just quickly that if Onana has another season like he just had, in terms of injury, that's a real red flag.
A
huge red flag. And then
100%.
I think almost every fan, like, we love Onana, we really do, but he has to be available for us because he is that
like a Formula One car.
He's combative. He's supposed to get stuck into tackles, and he does, but then it seems he breaks down a little bit. Everything he's good at almost comes with a consequence, and that's going to be an issue. And what I would say is that the last few weeks of the season, he stayed fit and was able to play a lot, played the most that he had all season. In the back end of it, I think he had like 9 games that he played in a row, but you want him to play for 34 games in a row, and is he able to do that? I'd like to think that he is, but it's a bit of a risk if you were to turn down, again, call it £70 million. You turn that down, and then next season he's out for 2 months of the season through injury, and we need him. You're going to get that money again. So, yeah, he's a player that really does need to be available for us, as do they all. But that specific player, it's something that you can't take in and out of the team. He does something very unique. So, I love him, and I love the player as well that I'm seeing, if that makes sense, develop. Beforehand, there was areas to his game where I was like, oh, I'm not sure. Can he take that ball in that tight pocket? Can he do this and that? I've seen a bit more that I'm liking of Onana. So I definitely want to see him next season.
I think.
But equally, if it was big money, good money.
I think his injury record is absolutely worth flagging. 100%, it has to be. And I think Jacob Ramsey is in a similar category as well. And we'll get to him in a second. Again, it's that spinning plates thing of, if we're expecting Kamara may stay, and the bid comes in for an Onana of 75, again, to keep with your numbers, comment there, no way you're keeping an Onana for 75 when he doesn't necessarily get in our strongest 11. I do agree with that. However,
go on.
Sorry, if you think, okay, well, that's too good to turn down, we think Kamara's staying, then the Kamara situation changes for whatever reason, he went as well. I think if Kamara goes first, I think Onana probably is in your best 11 then. If he can stay fit and you take all that as, he's going to be fit anyway. I think Onana does start every game next year. I think it's Onana and Tielemans is your midfield.
Yeah, Kamara is quite a, if that doesn't go as we'd like it to, then that would change probably your mind on it. Yeah. But I think we live in a world now in PSR where you have to think long term, of course. That's why you buy younger, to maximize value in the future and develop your players. But it's also, you do have to think quite short term too. For example, right now, is Amadou Onana a £75 million player? No, he's not. So therefore, if someone offered you £75 million, well, it's almost like the rule is, well, you got to take that.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, you can sell other players that you'd rather sell. For example, Morgan Rogers, is he a £80 million player? Maybe for some people. But then his value will increase next season and into the World Cup as well. So that's a player whose value is going to continue to do that. Wow, that was quite cool, wasn't it? Whereas Onana,
not for the audio listeners, it wasn't.
No, Onana. Yeah, again, it's the injury record I'm quite scared about, to be perfectly honest with you. 50 million is a lot of money for Villa. That's a record signing, right? Him and Diaby was a bit less, I think. So, yeah, your record signing, you need him to be available. And again, if next season is like this season, and this season wasn't like terrible in terms of injury, he wasn't out like Diego Carlos was that one year that he signed. It's a few months, but yeah, we play a lot of games, and it's a big asset of the team as well. So, literally as well, he's massive. So that helps in different parts of our game too. So, yeah, it's interesting. And would a Saudi move appeal to Onana?
I wouldn't have thought so, but I don't know him personally. Obviously,
it takes two to tango here.
Yeah. All right, let's move on from him.
He's got a lot going in his life, hasn't he? I think he's got business. He's got charities. He speaks a lot of languages. It's yeah.
I think, and this is probably a bit of a generalisation, I'd have question marks over anyone under the age of 28 or 29 going to Saudi. Why? Like, if you're good enough and you back yourself, that move will come later down in your career anyway.
Yeah.
For a 23-year-old Onana to get a good break to get into the Villa side for a good fee, and on a decent wage, well, you don't throw that away after a year just because Saudi is bigger money. Like, if Saudi want you when you're 27, you go then. Like, have another crack at the Premier League and winning trophies here. You see out what you joined Villa for in the first place. So I'd question that for any player, young player going to Saudi. Let's move forward into forward positions. We'll eventually wrap this up in a second, I think. Let's do Ramsey and Rodgers kind of together, because I think previously you'd probably say, well, we obviously want to keep both. Of course we do. I think Rodgers you definitely want to keep, and for the sake of me putting the features together over the weekend, I definitely want to see him here for at least another season, so that doesn't immediately go out of date. It's just keep being watched by Chelsea fans or Arsenal fans instead, because he's gone there. However, every player has a price, and again, the way things go, that if he wants a move or it's a silly offer that we can't refuse, Man City come and say, here's 120 million, you know, as much as we like Morgan Rodgers and think he's going to get better and better, there probably is a cap on that. Even if he has a brilliant year and he's in the World Cup squad next year, you're probably still not getting more than 120. So maybe that is the cut-off point that you say, go on then, we'll just take it. But if it's like 60, 65, you think, well, if we back this player like we think we do, he'll be worth more than that. So you don't sell him by choice. I think Ramsey was probably in that similar bracket previously before injury, that we don't want to let him go. He's a homegrown lad. We want at least 50 million, 60 million for him. Whereas now I do think there would be a figure where you go, you know what, go on then. I would take that. That's probably not as much as people maybe think.
Yeah, I did a piece on it quickly, just saying, you know, bit of a crossroads really. 2 years left, as I mentioned earlier. Hasn't had an injury hit season really this season, but only scored 1 goal. And you'd almost reading his statistics, you'd almost want to think that he was injured. That sounds horrible, but you know what I'm trying to say. For him to have played that many games and only had a goal and a few assists, I think, you want a bit more. And I know the game is much more than that. Like Grealish didn't have many contributions, but was clearly our best player. But we're at a different level now, and I think everyone needs to contribute. And we didn't score too many goals this season, did we? We should have scored more based on the quality we have. And Ramsey's a quality player. He was definitely getting back to his best at one stage in this campaign, and then just fell off a little bit again. And it seems to kind of, his form goes up and down and up and down, but nothing has got me as excited as when he was like 9 out of 11 games. He had goal contributions at the back end of the 22-23 season. So, yeah, a big decision needed on Ramsey, really. Again, will Tottenham, West Ham or Newcastle land a bid, put a bid on the table, for Ramsey and really test our resolve? I don't know. Last summer, that was close to happening. Langer really pushed for him. But Unai put his, stamped his authority and essentially said, no, he's one of our unsellable players. Him, Konsa, Bailey was in that mix as well. Other players too that Villa just said not selling. Louise obviously left. That was something planned a bit before that. So, yeah, what the situation is going to be on Ramsey, I'm going to try and find out a bit more. But last year it was unsellable after this season. Again, you either give him an extension or the business decision is, assess offers, I guess, because I don't think there'll be, or there isn't any shortage of interest in Ramsey, put it that way.
Yeah, it's interesting, is it? Ramsey and Bailey both considered unsellable last season and would absolutely be worth more last season than I think they would be this, because now you look at them and think, well, we can improve there, and if an offer comes in, it's good for PSR and blah, blah, blah. I think you have to take the sentiment out of it that he's a local lad and a Villa fan and all that kind of stuff. If an offer is good and you can get a better player than him with that money, then it's about making Aston Villa better rather than being nice to Jacob Ramsey, basically, to be really cutthroat about it. Again, if Emery wants him and he's still his guy and he's still unsellable, he for the most part, he won't go, because Emery is king in that regard. If he was to go, what kind of money would you be happy with? I mean, happy is probably the wrong word, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. What is his value? And I'll say it as a neutral. Put it this way, take the kind of whole situation. If this player was playing for West Ham, should we say, and Villa wanted to sign him, how much would you pay? With 2 years left on his deal. So if you look at it that way, would you pay more than... Go on.
25 I'd pay.
Okay, I was going to say I'd probably push it to maybe 30 because it's England and...
Yeah,
because it's England. Great sentence there, John. Because he's English. I mean, obviously for us, he's one of our well, pretty much or maybe with Bellegarde as well, depending on his age right now, and I'll have to work it out. But last season anyway, after Philogene left, he was our only club trained player in the European squad. There's 4 slots for them, so we'd have 1 less player if he was to go. But yeah, I don't think Villa would be making a huge amount of money, but it would be pure profit. So it would be good money. It's horrible to think like this because I don't want Ramsey to go, and we shouldn't be in a situation where this is a thing. But you have to think what's best for the squad. And again, Unai will have to assess what we're talking about now. Well, what player would replace him? That would be the conversation. Would it be another? Apparently, Boyd. Well, I say apparently he was Boyd fan, wasn't he? Grealish. So I was going to go down that route. You swap 1 for 1, but I don't know.
No, I wouldn't do that.
That would be changing the kind of flipping the script in terms of buy young and all of a sudden now buy older, injury record and all that. So you've got to look at it as I've just looked at it then in terms of Ramsey. Take the sentiment out of it. Would we buy Grealish if he was a French player playing for Lyon? Don't know, probably not. So would we do it now? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously it is different though.
I think it's definitely interesting to flip the script and almost do it as if you were trying to get this player. How much would you be happy Villa bidding for that player? And looking at Ramsey was, had a good spell last year, or that 9 goal contributions in 10 games, whatever was season before. He's had plenty of injury problems. AVFC Stata said he missed 11 games this season with a hamstring injury, which again is relatively sizable.
It's just the year before that was like particularly bad. It was reoccurring and he couldn't get fit.
England under 21s, wasn't it? He came back and was hardly playing at all.
Yeah, he had a good run at the start and at the back end of this season as well. So I think his fitness wise, I have no real concerns.
But he still has that injury history, I suppose, and it's the doubts that could come back or whatever. So there'd be that. There'd be his record. I know, like you said, the numbers aren't everything, but he's not making up for not contributing with goals and assists because he's our best player. Because he's not our best player either. So if you looked at all that, and we were signing this player from Newcastle, and he'd got 1 Premier League goal and some injury record, you'd be going, well, it's a risk to spend anything over 30.
Yeah, someone made a good point in the comments there. I'm trying to find Rub P. I don't know if that's supposed to say Rob. I think. Sorry, I need to read the comment. I don't know. If we don't sell him for big money, then keep him. I agree with that because if you can sell other players for big money and earn a lot, then why would you then sell Ramsey almost like as another one? Because he'll sign a new deal if Villa offer it to him, I'm sure. So it almost feels like I would kind of, in a way, similar to Cash. 2 years left, but Cash is like, well, would you give him a new deal? Probably not because of his age. Ramsey, would you give him a new deal? Yeah, I guess, to see if he can get back to the levels that he was showing / the excitement that we felt when we were watching him before. I'd be happy to do that as long as you can make the money up elsewhere without having a major impact on your squad. So that's something that, again, Villa are going to have to talk about this, and they'll know what they want to do and what players they want to target. But it just feels like Ramsey's in a bit of a, shall I say, vulnerable situation where I don't think he can be classed as unsellable now, basically. I don't want him to go. And I'd be happy to give him, another 2 years on his deal to protect his value. So if he doesn't play well next year, not saying he didn't play well this year, but if he doesn't get to the level that we want him to, well, then you've got an asset still there and not someone who's all of a sudden I've got 1 year on his deal. And that would become an issue.
Okay. I want to combine kind of one player position now to end. I think, well, my gut is anyway, and that's probably not the thing to go off, is I think Watkins will stay. And if he doesn't, obviously we just need to sign a striker. So kind of that's that conversation. That's all we need to say. I think the kind of the backup or the support to that role. So I'm thinking like Rashford / Asensio, that kind of someone who can play number 10 or out on the left or whatever. That player that is obviously Rashford, I don't think will be here. Asensio may or may not be. If he is, obviously that's part of fixing this issue. But somebody to help either create or finish the chances that are being created. What kind of role or quality are you looking for in that position? Is it just a winger and you play somebody on the left and that's it? Or are you looking at somebody who maybe could play out front like a Marlon, or a proper out and out number 10 like an Asensio? Like what would you be after?
You'd be after Gakpo, wouldn't you?
Great player. Terrific player.
Yeah, terrific player. It's interesting because obviously the way that Emery spoke about Rashford and the fact that he actually played him ahead of Watkins, which stunned me, really did. I know Rashford showed, bright sparks here and there, but to play him ahead of Watkins, I think was a massive, massive risk and one that I think just about paid off. But in the end, I think it's probably not a good thing that Rashford got injured, of course, but in terms of, I don't know, people are split on Watkins, aren't they? So I'm not going to go into it because I'll go on for another hour, but I want Watkins as my number 9, no questions asked. But obviously needs backup and competition to a point. But that competition, because Watkins is going to play almost every game. I do think the player that joins needs to be top quality and therefore has to cover different positions. And this is something that Emery said before, McGinn, Rodgers, he wants the versatility of those players. Someone who can cover the left-hand side of the pitch / striker. Yeah, that would be ideal. I don't have a name though, unfortunately. Again, I think next time we do this sort of video, it will be with our lists of random players you've never heard about in the Belgian league, or that I've ever seen play. Just seen stats, but yeah, I don't know. I think that it sounds a very simple answer, but that player like Rashford, I guess, is something that we'd just be looking at again. I don't think it will be all of a sudden, Vlahovic or target man to complement Watkins. I don't see that myself. I think our system is, it can be tweaked, but it's also quite delicate in terms of wing back goes on the left because you have Maatsen, you got a double pivot there. You have a number 10, Asensio. He could be coming back, and Emery said that he's so important to what he wants to do. So that kind of feels already like the clues. You just got to work around that. But then you can't play 2 strikers in that system, really, can you?
No.
If you've got Rodgers on the pitch as well and McGinn and Tielemans. So, I'd have thought someone who can come in from the left and obviously get goals, therefore play up front as well.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because I think if it's somebody like Rashford, there is almost that pressure on he can also play striker, so that means I can chop and change. I think if you're committing to Watkins being the guy and knowing he's going to start, I think having someone of that caliber almost puts that pressure on Watkins in a bad way. And maybe not necessarily that it makes Watkins worse, but just kind of, again, this Mings or Torres, I don't know, Watkins or X, I don't know which one's going to start, and I think that's a bit odd. I think if you've got Watkins and Marlon as your backup striker, if Watkins was to get injured, Marlon plays up front. Yeah. The profile that you're after is someone that is more a left number 10 or whatever you want to call it. Somebody that is a bigger goal threat than Ramsey, let's say, but not an out-and-out striker that wants to play up front every week but can't because Watkins exists, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And that's what I thought Rashford was going to be, but Emery said himself, he's not a winger, he's not a striker, he's in between. And I thought, I think he is a winger, though. He probably can play him where Ramsey was in that space there, but Emery didn't want to do it. So,
a couple of comments
that's
there
what I would do.
A couple of comments there for Nicholas Jackson, who I wouldn't be a fan of, to be perfectly honest. He's going to want to come in and play as a striker.
I thought Nicholas Jackson was in the chat. Who's he recommended?
Might be. But he'll want to play up front, and that's if Watkins is fit, he's playing up front. So how does that work? You rotating the forwards every other game? It's just a weird dynamic.
Yeah, he played off the left for Emery at Villarreal, I'm pretty sure. But in that system, that was probably quite a lot. I don't know, maybe not a lot different to what he's doing at Villa now, but I'm just quite wary of that left-sided player. I'm looking at Ramsey drive forward with the ball. Rodgers does that on the left side as well. McGinn too. Jackson's not doing that. Is Jackson running backwards? No, probably not. I think it's got to be a player that's got quite a lot to their game. A really important position, really. I'm going to, after this, have a look. I probably should have done this much before, but I've been off the last 2 days, so I didn't have a look at what players we could be looking at in terms of what profile. I mean, again, profiles are kind of locked down, but what players fit that profile exactly, it's certainly interesting.
Yeah, I'm not for this episode specifically. I wasn't too bothered about actual names of I want. It's just we've identified because
when you talk about it, I now want to bring one out. But
but Villa will sign and have their own targets, and there's no point kind of guessing is my theory. But we kind of know we feel like we know what works under this Emery team. So what kind of
seen a lot of Nico Williams as well, and I'd be absolutely stunned if Nico Williams joined Villa, considering we're not in the Champions League. I know we came relatively close to signing him before, but he also rejected us a few times. He's now a better player than that, and came close to signing for Barcelona, did he not? who are now winning the La Liga and probably should have gone further in the Champions League than what they did. So, yeah, I'd be stunned if he joined Villa now. And that's ship's probably sailed if it was ever really there.
Okay, I'm going to wrap up there. We've just hit the hour mark, so thank you very much to everyone who watched along live on YouTube and sent your suggestions through in the chat as well. Really useful to have that kind of interaction. As I said at the very top of the show, there is some content you can go back and catch up with. The live show is still worth watching, by the way. You just got to kind of tune your ears into the audio not being great, but it's still a good episode. We didn't talk about Garnacho. Do you want to do that very quickly?
I don't really have too much to say, to be fair. Do you?
I don't like him. I can say that much. I wouldn't want us to sign Garnacho. Oh my God, it's like doing a podcast with Kendrick. I should have just called it. Forget it. Don't even answer, John. Don't go there. We'll talk about Garnacho another time. Garnacho, no, in the comments. Big fan of that. We'll do that another time. We're doing our Q&A either on Monday or Tuesday, so we'll discuss Garnacho there. Thanks everyone who watched along live, though. Really do appreciate it. The Morgan Rogers feature as well, if you want to go and watch that, it's a good piece. I'm really proud of it, and it'd be really nice to see people going to watch that, because I think it's something a little bit different and something we want to do a little bit more of. If you listened on audio platforms, then leave us 5-star reviews and ratings and whatever else. They're really helpful to help the channel grow as well. There'll still be content throughout the season, despite there being no games. We'll do our regular Q&A and transfer stuff, breaking news, whatever happens, we'll be here to cover it all. So, John, thanks for joining me. Enjoy your holiday. We'll see you again in a week or so, or 10 days. If you enjoyed this episode, please do let us know. Thank you for watching or listening to this episode of the Cloud Blue Podcast, and we'll see you again for the Q&A in a couple of days. Bye, everyone.